let's talk about that value to the customer. So as a maker, this is how you perceive value. You think about the hours in your studio, the time at your bench, the cost of the materials. Yes, my bench really is that messy. I'm a metalsmith, so even though this is not technically a jeweler's bench, I will call it a bench for the rest of my life. It's my work table. So this is how we tend to think about value, right? We think, okay, I spent all this time, blood, sweat, and tears, all of that stuff. This is how your customer thinks about value. Some of you may recognize Tara Gentile. So this is what Tara had to say about my work. So she says, Megan Auman jewelry is as strong and durable as I am. When I put it on, I know I'm reflecting the beauty and confidence I feel inside. So I put it on every day. So I know from 1.5 million conversations with Tara that Tara has no idea how my stuff is made, and she doesn't care. What she cares about is how it makes her feel when she's using it. And so that's what I want to get you guys to start to shift and think about, is that the value to your customer comes from their experience of the product, not how it's made, what it's made from. None of that really matters. It's all about their experience. So they might value how useful a product is to them. And use is a tricky word, I think, for those of us who are making things that are considered non-essential, right? It's sometimes hard to put use on something like jewelry. You know, I think, Monica, you guys have an easier time saying, like, our product is useful. But so I don't want you guys to get hung up on that useful piece if it doesn't feel like it fits in your brand, because it's not the only thing that people value. There are a lot of people who don't care about, quote unquote, function at all. What they care about is maybe what your product says about them, or more importantly, how your product makes them feel. And I know that some of you are probably thinking, okay, this is great. This is a class about selling to retailers. Like, does any of this matter? Absolutely, it matters. Because ultimately, your products are still ending up in the hands of customers. And customers are going to walk into a store, and those are the things they're going to think about. How often am I going to use it? Does it work with what I have? Do I love it? How does it make me feel? Like, can I not leave the store without this because then I'll be really sad? That's what they're going to think about. They're not going to think about how long it took you to make it. You know, are you charging a certain profit margin? It's just not in their brains, because why would it be? Why would they need to think about that? So we're going to start to think about the value to the customer. And I want to kind of share another quote from Tara. Since we're talking about Tara here, we're going to keep on rolling, because this is one that when Tara and I used to give pricing talks together a lot, she said this and it really stuck with me because I think it's so key to makers. So just because something is easy for you doesn't mean it isn't valuable to someone else. That is super important to remember. So this necklace, the Melissa necklace that we've been talking about, I showed you guys, takes 12 minutes to make. It is super easy for me. It's like a get in, get out, it's done. So easy. But to someone who has no idea how to metalsmith something, they don't know. So it's completely valuable to them, not even because they don't know how to make it, but because of, again, that experience, the way it makes them feel, that they can toss it on and it makes their outfit seem totally done and totally easy. And that's what people are buying. So one of the things that is really important as we're thinking about this value to the customer is that we have to increase the perceived value, right? So a lot of times now we're saying, okay, our prices have to come up. How do I do that? So there we go. So how can you increase the perceived value of your product? So we're going to come back and we're going to actually define like what the value is for you guys. But how can you increase the perceived value? So first of all, as I mentioned, we're going to focus on customer use, not your process. Your customer doesn't care how long it took to make. Most of the time, they don't actually care about the material. If they're knowledgeable, they might ask about a material, but it's usually a deeper root question, and this goes for your store buyers too. You're also going to sell on benefits and, more importantly, on emotion, not on features. So there's this whole kind of thing in marketing, and we're going to come back to this in a future segment when we talk about defining your USP and talking about your products. But the whole idea is that, you know, marketers say, like, don't talk about features, talk about benefits. I think if you're talking about benefits, you're not going far enough. People in our fields They don't buy based on benefits because the benefits are too difficult to nail down. They're buying on emotion because they're having emotional reactions to a product. So that's what we're going to sell on. And actually, the way that we sell on emotion is we sell through story. So we're going to talk about that. But I want to give you a really good example of someone who does a really good job of kind of putting this emotion first. So this is Catherine. Catherine has a brand called The Smallest Tribe. And this is something she posted on Instagram, where she said, I try to make clothes, so she makes kids' clothes, I try to make clothes that are the comfiest in their wardrobes so they can climb, run, jump, dig, etc. All the things that little kiddos need to do to help them gain independence, self-confidence, resilience, and a love of learning, so they are pumped and primed and ready to go once they hit school. Do you know how much people would pay to have their kids become independent, self-confident, resilient, and love learning? Like, all out of their clothes? That is such a great value to the customer. And so Catherine could probably charge whatever she wanted, because what parent wouldn't pay for all of those things for her kids? And yes, so Catherine's based in Australia. So yes, her products are made in Australia, and they are, you know, they're made with eco-friendly. All of that stuff is also very important to Catherine. But what she understands is that first and foremost, parents want these things for their kids. And you can apply this to you too. People want this for themselves. So that's how that perceived value starts to raise the price. The other thing that can help is to position your brand in a better way. So a lot of times the same product branded one way feels like one price, and branded a different way feels like a different price. So I told you guys that story about how at my first trade show, like people, you know, they were like, really, those are your prices? And I was like, yeah, those are my prices. But part of the reason that they were asking that is because my booth looked like crap. No wonder they thought my prices seemed high, because there was no feeling of a strong brand to back that up. Now they walk into that booth. They don't ask me about my prices anymore. They don't say like, wow, now, like I said, now they're like, wow, your prices are really reasonable. That's great. Like, we love it. So changing the context can really help. And this is something that as we're kind of working through your marketing materials, as we're thinking about your line sheet, as we're thinking about your brand, a lot of times it can be these really subtle changes. Obviously, this is not so subtle. That's pretty dramatic. But it can be these really subtle changes that really help kind of elevate the brand and then elevate that perceived value to the customer. So the perceived value is going to come both from, you know, the product and how it makes the person feel, but it's also going to come from the brand surrounding the product.